let's do some fan questions.
Hello, Chael. I got a quick question for you. I just got finished watching the Jon Jones Doesn't Need Dominic Reyes video, and yes, I do agree with you. He absolutely does not need that guy. He is not that good. I don't know how that dumb conversation got started, but not trying to be aggressive here, but I am. So my question is, do you think that they're slow playing this Johnny Walker, may be the guy or may not? We don't know. His shoulders kind of hurt. How is nobody talking about this guy? I know you've seen his fights. I've seen his fights. He is scary strong, scary explosive. This guy is going to be the next guy that beats Jon Jones. Do you agree with me, or do you think somebody else is going to be the guy to beat Jon Jones?
Okay, you're not alone in that thought. And people are talking about Johnny Walker. I was with Johnny Walker, and by with, I was in the same building with him in England 3 months ago for Bellator. And Walker was supporting somebody. And he came walking in the building. I mean, that place, people were standing up, they were looking, they were taking pictures, they were pointing. So, I mean, that's an arena, but in a foreign country, in a different organization, I mean, that's a good focus group. That's a damn good focus. That's a microcosm of the bigger picture. So I will just tell you, you aren't the only one that's noticed Johnny. He's tall. I mean, a lot of good things going for him. Now, can he wrestle? Can he deal with the wrestler? And that's going to be a big question if you're trying to sell somebody for Jon Jones. And I agree with you, Walker checks a lot of boxes. I do believe that it's down to Walker and Reyes. But now Walker is in there with Corey Anderson, and Corey Anderson damn sure can wrestle. So I think there's an opportunity to go all around. And when you say slow play, I know what you mean by that. It would not be beneficial to a promotion to name Dominic Reyes the number one contender right now when you've got two top guys getting ready to fight. You would at least want to dangle the imagination that there's a little something extra on that contest. But even aside from that, I do believe that there is. I do believe, particularly if it's Walker. I don't know if Anderson can beat out Reyes right now for whatever reason. I don't know that he can. Walker would have a pretty damn interesting argument, even though it's undercard versus Reyes' main event. Walker is getting a lot of the right looks. And my personal opinion is they are holding off. I think Reyes is in the driver's seat, but they are holding off. And I think they're holding off for Walker.
There's obviously been some teammate fights out there that everybody's been clamoring for years, whether it be Nick versus Nate or Kane versus DC or you versus Randy or you versus Dan Henderson or Hendo versus Randy. Or my question basically is, Chael, is there any other that jump off the page to you when you think, man, I'd like to see those two teammates lock horns?
Yeah. Yes. Normally, if you would ask me, I say no. Something doesn't feel right about that. There was a show that was going to take place 15 years ago, and it never got off the ground. But the entire theme of the show was going to be called Brotherly Love, and it was going to be all brothers fighting each other. The Sarah brothers were going to fight. The Shamrock brothers were going to fight. The Hughes brothers were going to fight. It did not feel right. I did not like the sound of that. I didn't like the feel of that. Very odd. And I get that similar feeling when teammates start to have a beef, you know. I think that that's private and that should never leave the practice room. And there is those that happen in practice. There's a lot of shouting and screaming and somebody throws their headgear down and storms out. Coach has to bring everyone together and apologies have to go around. I mean, there is a lot of drama in those gyms, but ultimately, if you have a good teammate, you shake his hand. And maybe you were the jerk that day. Maybe something was going on with you, but maybe it was him, and it kind of balances itself out. And that's the way teams work. However, more recently, we are starting to see stuff out of the ATT. I'm talking about, the Poirier, Masvidal, Colby Covington triangle going on there that I do think you're going to see. I do think with a little bit of success all around, guys are going to meet up.
Hi, Chow. My question is, I, like you, was a fan of pro wrestling back in the Attitude Era. I heard a lot of hype about this new promotion called AEW, so I thought I'd give it a try. And I turned it on, and it's just a bunch of nerds doing a choreographed gymnastics routine. So my question is, what happened to pro wrestling? Where are all the tough guys?
Yeah, pro wrestling is dead, and good for you for noticing that. Pro wrestling does not exist anymore. Now you have sports entertainment. Sports entertainment can be a wonderful and a great thing and a good time. And it's really not a knock. But for you to point out that you're recognizing that the tough guys are gone is right. You're completely right. It is gymnastics. It is a performance. It is stunt work. It is dangerous. It is silly. And you have a crowd cheering for it. Those people are buffoons. That is ridiculous that you would want to see somebody climb a ladder and do a backflip off it through a table and on top of another human being. By the way, with no professionals in place. This is not like Hollywood. This is the Wild West, and they can do it, and you have a crowd cheering for it. That's sports entertainment. There appears to be a place, but you weren't wrong to complain about that place. Where's pro wrestling? Where's the good guy versus the bad guy doing moves that resemble, that you could suspend reality far enough to accept would work in a street fight? Moves that look like actual fighting techniques while trying to get the 1, 2, 3 or the tap out submission over your opponent. Sadly and mistakenly, it's a mistake. The writers think it's all about sports entertainment now. They're wrong. There is a fan base. There is an audience. Bring back professional wrestling.
Hey, Chael, this is Eric out of Boston. Big fan. I got a question for you about Jon Jones. A lot of people are saying Jones should fight Reyes next. Other people are saying let's wait for Walker Anderson, then do a finals match, and then have that person face Jones. I think there's another option here. Why don't we move Jon Jones up to heavyweight? Not to fight Cormier, not to fight Miocic, but instead to fight Francis Ngannou. A Jones-Ngannou fight seems like it would solve a lot of problems all at once.
Yeah, so welcome to last week. That was discussed a little bit by Jon Jones, who was dangling that out there. And Ngannou responded in some fashion. Now, I think you would have some moving parts there. And first off, if Jones is going to move up to heavyweight, he must vacate the light heavyweight title. And the only reason I think you would want to make that a condition, okay, is if Jones is going to slide up to heavyweight and take on Ngannou, stop the hype train and ruin everything that Ngannou could go do, okay, fine. But in this business, when you take something from a guy, you then have to run with it. So when you take a guy's championship, you got to offer that to somebody else. You have to pay it forward. It's one of those things. So if Jon was could go up, take out a top guy, go back down to 205, hang out there for a little bit, I think you would have an issue. I would respect it very much if he were to move up, particularly move up and not into a title fight, go into a number one contendership fight, just because that would show a tipping of the hat, a real respect to the sport, and not one, in fairness, that Jon has to do. Jon does get to cut the line if he moves to heavyweight. That's true. But I think that would be fun, and you're not the only one that's seeing it. I don't know that there's legs to it, but I'm on standby to hear.
Chael, Joe from North Carolina. Wondering if you could talk on Conor quick about these 3 losses everybody's quick to talk about, and the fact that, one of them came at 170, Nate Diaz, who he avenged, got his W back. Floyd Mayweather is arguably the best boxer of all time, who he whooped up on for multiple rounds. And then Khabib, who nobody seems to be able to beat, is undefeated. Those are the 3 losses he has, and yet everybody, because he's got, 0-3 in those 3 losses, everybody wants to just write him off, but I don't think that tells the whole story. I'm wondering if you could reach out on that.
Well, you nailed it. All I could really do to add to this piece is summarize what you just said. Yes, people have forgotten how good Conor McGregor is, and you're exactly right. He was a 45-pounder that went up, skipped over 155, and ends up at 170, okay? That's a win for Conor. That was a major win to show that kind of courage and do those kind of numbers and walk out there against Nate Diaz. So even though his hand didn't get raised, I see it your way as well. When he switched sports and goes over against Floyd, and yes, to what he whooped up on Floyd. That was a major win for Conor McGregor, who was 0-0, and they were questioning should they even license him to go a half hour and, by the way, never fall down. Major win for Conor McGregor. And then again to the Khabib fight. I see it your way as well. A lot on that, a lot of hype, a lot of pressure, a lot of eyeballs. Didn't get his hand raised, but he's the only guy to ever win a round, officially win a round against Khabib. That's another win for Conor. So I do see it your way, and we're not making excuses. I'm just telling the story the way that it happened. But you're right in your assessment.
Hey, Chael, quick question. I wanted to know, what was your prediction on the Tony versus Khabib fight? I know you gave us some thoughts on it, but I wanted to know what your actual prediction was. Like, if you had to place a bet, who would it be?
Okay, so I'm not ready to give you that. And I will tell you why. I have seen the dominance of Khabib. I have seen him run people over. I'm aware that in certain positions, Khabib cannot be beat. I'm aware of it. I respect it. The boys in the back are starting to talk, and nobody knows better than the guys within the division. Nobody. They're starting to say it's Tony. They're starting to say why. They're starting to talk about some conditioning. They're starting to talk about some positions. They're starting to talk about the damage that Tony can do from the bottom and also the submissions that he could throw up to offer a threat to Khabib. They're getting pretty analytical. They're not just saying who they like more, which you get that all the time. Hey, who do you think's going to win this fight? Whoever you like more, that's the guy I'll say. Nah, the guys in the back are starting to break it down. They're starting to say Tony, but they're also starting to say why. I've had my own experiences with Tony. We were teammates. The same workout room. I never touched him. We never drilled together. We never sparred together. The way the room was broke up is everybody this size and down over here, everybody this size over here. We're on separate sides of the room. As good as Khabib has looked, and there is no question, he has looked nothing short of amazing. Amazing might not even be high enough praise. I just can't think of a more complimentary word. Guys, you have to take me at my word. I have seen Tony Ferguson look just as good. As impressive as you have seen on TV, I have seen with my own eyes that never made it to TV. I have seen Tony Ferguson do things that would amaze you and impress you and leave you in shock, the same way as you feel when you watch Khabib. That's a very close fight. I am not a prude or scared or hesitant to give you a prediction. I am just not prepared. I need to see that fight get announced. Need to know where the venue's going to be. There's some intangibles there. And we're going to have to kick the can on this. But I will give you a prediction. I just can't do it today.
His cross is like a freight train. He moves just like a dancer. Before you ask a question, he already knows the answer. He's never lost, he cannot fail. And that's the facts of Uncle Chael. Say okay, great, to far and wide. You're welcome here.